We got 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets, you guys. It's time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of Regan's Newsround, where I cover 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets. The date and time of this recording is the 6th of June 2024 at 9:52 a.m, just for reference. And we start here with The Guardian with the headline of "The Tories up to pledge homicide law overhaul with US-style classifications. Rishi Sunak will reportedly introduce tiered systems and longer sentencing under a new proposal." So this is once again like desperately throwing sticky mud to the wall and hoping that something will stick, that will click with the voters out there in a desperate bid to hold on to power. We know it's not really, it's at the moment as of right now that it's not really working. We know that people are if those who are conservative, a lot of them are just turning to reform, or some are just simply not voting at all. Obviously, the Nigel Farage factor has played a role in all of this as well. And when it comes to this, I don't agree with this. I think one of the biggest problems that we have is that we have a lot of people behind bars where they shouldn't need to be behind bars. I think we need to not be so. How can I put this? We need to be a little bit more looser, a little bit more calmer when it comes to sentencing. Now, I'm not talking about the violent ones. I'm talking about the drug-related ones. I'm talking about the lighter sentences that people get thrown in jail for. And I think we need to impose more people who do some of the lighter sentences. Need to be doing more community service rather than prison time, simply because of the overcrowding of the prison system. And we're a long way off from fixing this crisis within our prison system. And nobody wants more prisons built. Nobody will want a prison built near them in their town or wherever as well. So that's another factor problem that we have here. Is that the Tories haven't refurbished or done more to improve our prison system as well. The rehabilitation has been a failure as well, and I've covered this on several videos in the past on this channel. But I don't approve of this US style classification. It sounds good on paper, but it doesn't fix the issue. It sounds tough. It sounds good on paper. You're going to crack down on crime and whatnot, and crack down and get more people behind bars. But he's refusing to address the fundamental crux of the issues that we are in right now, where crime is high at the moment, and prison systems are overcrowded. And that's under his watch. That's under his political party's watch, and nobody seems to have a solution to that. So I'm not really a fan of this idea, but maybe some people probably do. But let's have a read into it, you guys. So, Rishi Sunak will reportedly pledge an overhaul of homicide laws, introducing a US-style classification for murder and increased sentencing as part of the Conservative manifesto. The proposals would include a tiered system of first and second-degree murder, as well as an increase in the minimum sentence for murder that will take place in the home from 15 to 25 years. The Conservatives will promise to commit to wider reforms of homicide legislation if they win the election, the Times have reported, including a review into tackle loopholes and anomalies in sentencing in what could be the biggest shake-up since the Homicide Act in 1957. Under the proposals, first-degree murder will apply only to those who kill intentionally and will result in automatic life sentences in efforts similar to current laws. Second-degree murder would apply to cases where the offender intended to do serious injury and where there is a partial defence of what would otherwise be first-degree murder. Sentencing would be left to the discretion of the judge, but would include the option of a life sentence. Creating a tiered classification of murder would enable some forms of manslaughter to be considered second-degree murder. The manifesto will also promise to raise the minimum tariff for people who kill inside their home with the intention to give tougher sentences to domestic abusers. It sounds good on paper, all this stuff, but none of it addresses the fundamental issue of where you're going to put these criminals. I mean, if you're somebody who wants to be tough on crime, and somebody who wants more done, especially on people who are domestic abusers, sexual assault, and murder and rape, and you obviously want them spending the rest of their lives as behind bars or as long as possible. This all sounds good on paper. The problem is that we have a judicial system where it takes too long for them for their case to be held, and it takes far too long. The prisons are overcrowded, so you have both these fundamental systems. The justice system is broken, by the way. The justice system is broken. We don't have enough judges. We don't have enough courts, because a lot of them have been either closed down or people have moved on simply because of the pay as well. So again, like, we're not sorting out those fundamental issues as well that has been caused by the Conservatives. Again, another thing that we should be talking about, but we're not. It is understood the Prime Minister became interested in the issue of homicide law after speaking to the families of the victims of killer Vado Cocaine, who fatally stabbed 3 people in Tottenham in last June. The proposed changes are thought to have been published by Alex Chalk, the Justice Secretary, who campaigned for an overhaul in the sentencing of killers before he entered government. Cocaine was charged with murder but allowed to plead guilty to manslaughter on the basis of diminished responsibility. He would have been charged with second-degree murder under Conservatives' proposals. So he's been charged with murder, but he's, diminished responsibility. Yeah, I can understand wanting to change that. I can understand that. The Times reported that 2 of the victims' families said the proposal for US-style murder classification would be a seismic important change. The Shadow Justice Secretary Sabina Mahmood said the Conservatives have been in power for 14 years, proposing this reform as a last-ditch attempt to look tough as senile and transparent. Rishi Sunak wanted to sound tough on domestic abusers, but he needs to urgently answer how he left the prisons crisis get so bad that he's been forced to release a high-risk domestic abuser that was deemed to be a threat to children. Labour have been long committed to look at inconsistencies in sentencing. We will do this as part of our work to get a grip on the prison crisis, get the courts moving, and get the victims justice. And that those things there that they've said about the courts and the prison system, right there, those are some of the fundamentals that need to be addressed there, which is something that the Conservatives have caused. We did not have these crises in terms of the prison system and the justice system being broke under a Labour government. This has occurred over the 14 years. Now, some people will argue that the pandemic that happened 4 years ago, and it's been a few years now since then. Some people will argue, well, there's a backlog from the justice system, and yes, there is a backlog of the justice system. There is a backlog of the justice system, but a lot of other countries don't have the same issue with their justice system, a backlog either, and they went through the same COVID as well. So what's the difference between us and them? Answers on a postcard, please. So that's something that needs to be highlighted there as well. But in terms of US style classification, I'm not very good when it comes to the law and crime, but those who consider the most heinous of crimes obviously should face, in my opinion, life imprisonment. And maybe there should be some kind of tier system, maybe, but it doesn't address. But for me, while I really want to make sure people get the justice they deserve, there needs to be addressing the issues of the justice system and the prison systems in order for us to be able to convict those who are responsible. And I think those on the lower echelons of crime, if they are in prison, maybe perhaps they should be looked to taken out of prison and put into community service work rather than serving those times. The lower end crimes such as robbery or drug-related issues, the ones that don't insist on violence or harmful, or those who have harmed others, shall we say. Even certain tax dodging, like depending on what the case is, it depends how much money of tax dodging it should be. Even them, I would consider even community service, as a means to try and free up more space in the prisons, just to help with that. Because I do think it's an issue that needs to be addressed, because the system we have right now just can't go on. It's another thing that the Conservatives sadly have broken in our society, I'm afraid. The next one here is a very fascinating one. It's an exclusive from Sky News, you guys. So, Reform UK pulls within 2 points of the Tories in the latest YouGov poll. The exclusive survey for Sky News puts Labour on 40%, the Tories on 90%, and Reform on 17%. So this is the latest. The gap has closed even more. Then there's a video I've got coming out from you that came out. I've got coming out from the Independent, and exclusive from them about the gap. But this is the latest one here to show just how much that Nigel Farage has really played a factor with the polling here. That's incredibly concerning for Sunak. It was already deep bleak for Sunak, but it's even more bleaker. I do think that, like, do we see any possibility? Do I possibly see any kind of negotiation about Reform candidates stepping back in Conservative seats? And part of me says no, but part of me can't just rule it out either, because they have done it before, the Brexit Party. This is the same party that's just been changed over on immigration. Like, I can see them doing that even against all the odds. I can see Nigel Farage and his party doing that. I know it sounds bonkers, but you just cannot trust what Nigel Farage has said. He says one thing, and then a year later he says something different. The guy still hasn't moved out of the country because he said he would leave if Brexit didn't work, and Brexit hasn't worked. But he doesn't want you to remember that, for example. He's insulted Scots by basically saying that we should put prisoners and immigrants on an island up in the north and the islands of Scotland, which is incredibly insulting, in my opinion. But despite all the things and the issues that I have with that ordinary people have, he is still popular with a certain section of society. And people actually think that he's going to save the country, which is I really just find quite hilarious. When he doesn't even know what it's like to work a normal manual labour job like myself that I've done, or some of you in the chat. He has no idea what it's like. He's from a private educated background. He's loads of money in his bank account and connections, and yet people think that he speaks for them. It's like with Donald Trump. It's insane. People actually think that Nigel Farage actually cares about their interests. He's a grifter, and he's always been a grifter. And it won't be until they're dead in their graves until some of the people who are fans of him dead in their graves to realise that maybe Nigel Farage wasn't in their interest, because he's not going to save this country. He's only out for himself. He's out for his own popularity and own for making money. That's where he's looking in his own interest. But if you want to buy into it, that's your choice. So Reform UK has pulled to within 2 points of the Conservatives, according to the latest YouGov poll of the election campaign from Sky News. The latest exclusive weekly survey conducted on Monday and Tuesday before the head-to-head TV debate puts Labour on 40% and the Tories on 19%, Reform UK on 17%, Liberal Democrats on 10%, and the Greens on 7%. I will say that the Greens have not been given enough airtime. This is one of the issues. I'm hoping they will get Carla on the debate will be given more of a voice on the debate stage, but we'll have to wait and see. Most of the poll, which was carried out using different methodology to last week's survey, was conducted after Nigel Farage became the leader of Reform on Monday. Compared to the last voting intention poll taken on Thursday and Friday, the Conservatives are down 2, Labour is down 6, the Lib Dems are up 2, and Reform is up 2. This means under the new methodology, the lead for Labour is 21 points. YouGov interviewed 2,144 Great British adults online. The impact of the methodological change, which applies modelling to turnout and the behaviour of don't knows, is typically to reduce the Labour lead by 3 and increase the Lib Dem share about 2. But there's usually no boost about the Tory share. Yeah, so it looks like there. I think Lib Dem's share increase has increased based on not so much on policies, but maybe more on the antics that the Ed Davey has been doing. A lot of the things that you've seen him doing. Some of the goofy stuff around, like in the water. Recently, he was at a daycare, a care home of some sort, bouncing on balls with other people, wanted to We Will Rock You, and that's publicity for the Liberal Democrats. That's publicity. Just showing his fun side sort of thing, and you might think it's a bit bonkers from the Lib Dems, but it's giving them a media attention, whereas you're not hearing a peep from the Greens. Obviously, Reform are buying their way onto their platforms, and the Conservatives and Labour are obviously the two main parties. So that's why I think the polls are going the way they are going at the moment. So the Greens need to do something. They really do if they want to gain a bit more, get more attention. Because at the moment, yes, they are saying a lot of the right things, the Green Party, but nobody's batting much of an eyelid for them. YouGov said the impact of this particular poll of the methodological change is slightly bigger because of the rounding, and that the Labour lead is under the old method, which would have been 27 points, up from 25-point lead at the end of last week. The poll is likely to worry some Conservatives who fear voters on the right of the Party to Reform UK, especially now as Mr Farage is at the helm. The veteran Eurosceptic on Monday announced that he would not only take over as Reform leader, but also stand as a candidate in Clacton, Essex. There is some mixed messaging, I would say, from Clacton. So there was a video by Novara Media who went down there, and there were a lot of people in Clacton. We saw one from Politics Joe, and pretty much most of them were for, pretty much everyone there was saying for Farage. But the one from Novara Media had a mixture of voters. They had some obviously in favour of him, but there were a lot of people from. There was one person who was speaking who was from Clacton, saying that he's going to get the seat and he's going to do nothing for the people of Clacton, and people are going to buy into it. So it may not. So it's just hearing that does raise a bit of eyebrows that maybe it's not all signed, sealed, and delivered for Farage, perhaps. This will be his 8th time trying to be an MP, having never previously succeeded. He had initially ruled out standing, but he said he had a terrible sense of guilt for not putting himself forward when the election was called. Mr Farage ruled out doing a deal with the Tories. I don't believe that for a second, because he's lied in the past, as he did in 2019 when Reform was known as the Brexit Party, saying at his campaign launch that he'd been betrayed by the Conservative Party and had been considered to help so. Has been a considerable help to. He said his goal was to win a million more votes than the Ukip had, which was another party previously led, to make Reform the official party. A YouGov MRP poll of 53,000 people in England and Wales and 5,500 5,541 in Scotland, published on Monday, had the Conservatives likely to win Clacton, but that was before Mr Farage made his dramatic announcement to return to frontline politics. So interesting. It's interesting numbers there from YouGov. But I always say take polls with a pinch of salt. There's still quite a lot of weeks between now and the general election, so I would say just take it a bit with a pinch of salt. We'll have to see a bit closer to the time what the numbers say. Obviously, the debates and that Farage is going to be in. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see how he conducts himself in them as well. Is he going to follow the same lines as Sunak and throw out lies about certain parties, because that's what Sunak did in the debate with Keir Starmer? Is he going to throw out lies and whatnot as well? That's going to be very interesting, to say the least. So whether he will or not will be one thing, but it's going to be interesting now. Things are definitely spiced up because of Farage, but I'm still waiting for deepfake audios and AI creative videos of party candidates, leaders saying the wrong thing. And of course, which is going to be a real big, it's going to be a real big thing. Once the candidates are in place, the deadline is looming now on candidates to be put in for this general election. And once that deadline's passed, that's it. No going back here, pretty much. So it's going to be very interesting, to say the least, you guys. So if you guys, just before I go to the next one, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. Doing any of those things in a non-financial way really does help support the channel. So whether it's watching my videos a bit longer, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, all that stuff really does a big difference. So thank you to everyone who's done that. It really greatly appreciated. Just a small article here from the BBC. This next one here is that Labour have dropped their legal action against the Corbyn-era staff. So what's this about? I'll just read it out for you a bit. So the Labour Party has abandoned long-standing legal action against 5 former members of staff who have been accused of conspiring against Sir Keir Starmer's leadership. The action is estimated to have cost the party millions of pounds, which critics said could otherwise have been spent on general election campaign. The 5 include 2 key figures from the Jeremy Corbyn era, the ex-director of communications, Seamus Marley, and of Mr Corbyn's former chief of staff, Karen Murphy. They were accused of leaking controversial reports soon after Sir Keir became the Labour leader in 2020. A former shadow cabinet minister who did not wish to be identified told the BBC that the party should have dropped the legal action earlier. He said, "This is a huge embarrassment for the party, which has wasted eye-watering sums which could have made the difference in key seats in this election." Labour has previously said it has been confident of its case. So confident that they've dropped it. Why have they dropped it if they've been that confident? The most recent document presented in open court last autumn showed that Labour had spent £1.5 million on legal action and estimated it would spend nearly £900,000 more. The party's final costs are likely to be higher as these figures don't reflect the full cost of the litigation. But it is not clear if the party will meet the costs of those it claimed had leaked the controversial report. In a statement to the court, Labour officials claimed that the five entered into a conspiracy to use an unlawful means to provide a copy or copies of the report to the press to damage the party under the leadership of its then new leader, Sir Keir Starmer. Though his lawyers, the five, had strenuously denied they had consistently denied any involvement or complicity in the leak whatsoever. A very senior official in the party previously described the legal action to the BBC as a gamble. So why would they call it a gamble if they are certain that this happened by them? They did. So that's very suspicious to call it a gamble there. Interesting. And concerns have been raised privately about pursuing it by some Starmer supporters who were no fans of the Corbyn leadership. The 860-page leaked document obscurely examined the handling of anti-Semitism complaints under Mr. Corbyn's leadership. But it was a lot more than that. The report contention was that anti-Corbyn staffers had implied progress of anti-Semitism complaints and suggested that some of them had diverted funds away from certain constituencies in the closely fought 2017 election in which the party needed to win. But perhaps the most controversial aspect was the inclusion of under-redacted emails and WhatsApp messages from Corbyn critics, which laid bare internal tensions and factionalisms. Some of the messages contain derogatory comments about pro-Corbyn MPs and staff. A subsequent report into the leak and the wider culture in the party by Martin Ford KC found, for example, the criticisms of Diane Abbott are not simply a harsh response to perceived poor performance, they are expressions of a virile disgust. The report has been intended as a submission to the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, the ECHR, which at the time was the process of completing what would be a highly critical report of the party's response to complaints of anti-Semitism during the Corbyn leadership. Following legal advice, the party's then General Secretary Jenny Formey did not submit the documents to the EHRC and decided it should not be made public, but it was leaked in April 2020, within a week of Starmer becoming party leader. Even though the party was under new management following Starmer's election as leader, it faced legal action from 9 people, most of whom had made anti-Semitic complaints, who said their privacy and data had been breached. Labour named the 5 it considered responsible, including 3 more ex-staffers, Georgine Robertson, Harry Habel and Laura Murray, who had been closely involved in drawing up the report. And it took legal action with the aim of making them and the party predominantly liable for any damages. But even when the 9 people were alleged that their data had been breached, discontinued with their legal action in September last year, the party had continued to pursue the 5 to try and recover some of the mounting costs. Interesting. So they still continued the pursuit. But one source obviously said to the BBC that apparently this whole thing was a massive gamble. Was there sufficient evidence? I guess is another question. High Court documents set out in Labour's case against the 5, including suggestions they had discussed leaking the documents as part of a communication strategy in 2020. The lawyers of the 5 said they had been discussed or had been instead a rough plan to brief a narrative of the document to the press, with any confidential information redacted, but only to the event it was submitted to the EHRC, which never happened. None of the 5, their lawyers said, had considered the disclosure of the full unredacted report. They had condemned the leaking of the full document as reckless and foolish and not politically sensible. Perhaps more significantly, 3 inquiries or investigations into the leak had been conducted. The party itself appointed an independent investigator, Morag Slater, whose report was unable to name the leakers. The wide-ranging Ford report to the party's culture concluded in 2022 we could not identify the source of the leak. And the Information Commissioner's Office, the UK's data watchdog, told the BBC 18 months ago they have found insufficient evidence that any individual had unlawfully obtained or disclosed personal data. A joint statement from Labour and from the lawyers for the 5 states the party is discontinuing its legal claims against Katie Murray, Simus Mines, George Robinson and Harry Habel and Laura Murray, and on a no order to cost basis, the 5 welcome the resolution of the claim. With Jeremy Corbyn now expelled from the Labour ranks and standing against the party at the general election, the current leadership is likely to be revived. That this long-running reminder of the party in fighting has concluded, but not without political and financial cost. That is obviously this kind of stuff. Obviously, we've talked. There has been obviously that talk in the past about the so-called purge of the Labour left. That the words that have been going around, this so-called purge of the Labour left, that has been going around quite a bit. You're hearing that word quite a lot, to be fair. So-called left candidates, those who are sort of Corbynites and whatnot, those who are a bit more in favour. Now, the argument, obviously, from those, some of the arguments for on the Labour side of it is they're saying that they want a bit more united Labour Party, and even though that Labour and Keir Starmer have said they are a broad church, they are still pushing out some candidates. They argue that there is a strong vetting process, and that past things have past things that some of them haven't had been brought up is what pushed them out of their slots and whatnot. There have definitely been eyebrows and questions have been raised, but Labour are in the driving seat when it comes to this election, so they can kind of do what they want, even though some people, especially those on the left, don't like the situation. They can kind of get away with this. It's a kind of a bit of a shame, but because obviously if you want it to be a broad church, you would welcome all kind of sides. But I don't like some of the purging, if I'm honest. But at the end of the day, I'm not a Labour Party member. I don't know what's said on the inside. I can only speculate on what papers are saying and what people are telling me about it. Some people will say that it's absolutely fine, and that it's, but others will say no, this is exactly what Labour want to do. They want to purge the so-called left, and they want to go down more of the austerity right-wing pathway. So both main parties are that path. I am very, without doubt, I've always said I'm sceptical of the Labour Party, and that has changed. But in terms of this legal action, like if you had a case, yeah, you would have pushed it through, but clearly you did not have enough on this case, and well, it just feels like money has been wasted on it, if I'm honest. That's kind of how it feels. But we will move on, guys. So the next one I've got for you is from iNews here. It's not so much an interesting piece here from iNews. So a Tory Cabinet held talks about pledge on leaving the ECHR amid Farage fears. So a referendum on the membership of the European Court or a move towards quitting it outright is believed to be under consideration. So this article was a few days before. So this was 2 days ago. So this obviously was on the day of the debate. So they've obviously had talks about whether or not they're going to put this. Are they going to leave the ECHR in the manifesto? I don't think they will. I honestly don't think they will, guys. But what I think they will say is that they will not allow. I think what they will say is they will not allow any foreign courts to stop them from getting these flights off to Rwanda. Is what they will say. I don't think they will put in their wording on the manifesto that they're going to be leaving the ECHR, but they will put in wording that we will allow no foreign court to get in the way of us. I think that's what that's what they're going to say. I could be wrong, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But let's read what they have to say here. So Rishi Sunak's team has held talks with cabinet ministers on adopting a more hardline approach to European judges, including leaving the European Courts of Human Rights, as Conservatives look to counter Nigel Farage's attacks on migration. A senior source told the there have been discussions with senior ministers on taking a tougher line on the ECHR, which blocked the first attempt at a Rwanda deportation flight in 2022. Prime Minister has since passed laws that will allow him to ignore ECHR interim injunctions if they continue to block removal flights to Rwanda. But he has faced continuing calls to go further, either by quitting the Strasbourg court or holding a referendum on membership, with Tory right-wingers arguing that Sunak's laws are still not strong enough. I don't think, again, this is something the public should not be making. The whole point of politicians is to make the decisions for us. It shouldn't be the public making the decision on this, especially when they don't have a full understanding on this. So I fully disagree the idea of a referendum on whether we should stay or leave the ECHR, considering that the British public don't have a full, clear understanding of what the ECHR is, why it's so important, why we need it, and the consequences of leaving it won't be very clear either. So holding a referendum on it would be a terrible decision. Farage, who launched a grenade into the Tories' embattled election campaign on Monday by announcing he was taking over reform and standing to become an MP, has called for a referendum on quitting the ECHR. Allies of Mr Sunak said they would not comment on what may or may not be in the Tories' election manifesto. So they're saying that Farage has called for a referendum on quitting the ECHR. Fundamentally disagree. It's not something the public should be making a decision on when there's something they do not fully understand. The Home Secretary Sham cleverly signalled on Tuesday that the Tories' election manifesto would leave the door open to leaving the ECHR after Bloomberg reported that aides close to Mr Sunak would want a tougher line. One cabinet minister told the idea it had not been consulted on the idea but signalled that it would oppose a referendum on membership or quitting the call. Other moderate cabinet ministers also believed to be strongly opposed to quitting the call. Mr Cleverly himself has previously pushed back against the idea, arguing it would jeopardise cooperation with European allies on tackling illegal migration on the continent. However, the Home Secretary refused to rule out such a move. Asked by reporters whether the Conservatives could plead to withdraw from the convention, Mr Cleverly said, "We have absolutely made the point that the ECHR needs reform. We have driven reform. We have already driven reform." How many times does he need to say with reform? We're driven. Reform of the ECHR, which demonstrates it can be done. But the Prime Minister has been absolutely clear. No, he has not. I have been absolutely clear. No, you have not either. Our priority is to protect our borders, which you failed to do so, to defend our nation, which you're doing a really great job of that right now. And if we are presented with a choice between defending ourselves, our views of a foreign court, we will always choose to defend our borders, defend our countries. Those foreign courts are also British courts, by the way, for the record. So he wants to defeat British courts that protect our laws. That's what he wants to. That's what they want to do. Mr Cleverly also insisted that a tougher approach would not be driven by concerns about a threat posed by Mr Farage and reform, insisting Conservative politics are created with the British people in mind. Then it comes after the Tories appeared to respond to Farage's decision to stand to become an MP for Clacton in Essex by promising a hardline annual cap on legal migration on Monday night. Quitting the ECHR will probably mean that the UK will be forced to leave the Council of Europe, joining Russia and Belarus. Yes, because we definitely want to be friends with Russia and Belarus, guys. A Tory insider who is advocating quitting the ECHR in the past, meanwhile, said it was now too late for Mr Sunak to make the pledge after claiming his emergency Rwanda law would be enough to get flights off the ground. So now he admits it doesn't work, that he lied, it's too late. He looks desperate. Why are we leaving? What's the argument now? It's hardly a compelling case to the electorate. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's kind of... It's the same thing with the goddamn the conscription thing. The conscription on the military thing. Like Keir Starmer said it. Like, what said it in the debate. Like, why are you bringing this up now? Like, and again, I have to stress this. It's not a foreign court. It's a British court. And that's not being a part of the ECHR puts us in the same categories with the likes of Russia and Belarus. And a referendum would be a terrible idea. It really, really would. People really don't have an idea, an understanding of the disaster that would come. The rights that we have in this country would be fundamentally taken from us if we left the European Courts of Human Rights. We would not have that court there to protect us from the government if we don't have that anymore, if we're not a part of that. We need the ECHR. People honestly don't realise just how important that is to our institution. The consequences will be catastrophic. They really, really will. People may not see it right now, but people didn't see what happened with Brexit, and we look where we are now. Like, people are, and this is the same man that advocate for Brexit, and look where we are now. And he's pointing the finger, saying it's the Tories' fault. And he's gonna, and if we leave the ECHR, what's he gonna do then? Is he gonna blame someone? If we ever leave the ECHR, what's Nigel Farage gonna do? He's gonna blame someone else, obviously, because it's always someone else's fault. It's never his fault. He's completely innocent, apparently. It's insane, guys. Absolutely insane. So, guys, we're going to take a little break from these. We're about 34 minutes or so in here. We got 3 more articles for you guys. I've got a lovely, funny video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. The headline is for this: Why are world records are at a slam? This is from Foil and Arms YouTube channel. Make sure you go and check out their YouTube channel, as always, guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed this funny video.
Why are you here, Peter? I thought I put both of you on a plane to Mexico.
I'm not going to do it anymore.
What is going on?
Don't look at me.
I'm not going to do it anymore.
Not do what?
I won't greenlight any more stupid world records.
But we're the Guinness Book of Records. It's what we do.
Yeah, it's what we do, Peter.
Yeah, and there used to be integrity, not most amount of spoons balanced on a body or largest collection of airline sick bags.
And?
It's ridiculous. I mean, why do people even care about that?
Because they're world records, that's why.
Some of the bags had sick in them.
Whatever happened to tallest human, strongest person, the fastest land speed, noteworthy achievements, not most amount of people called Richard assembled in the one spot.
378.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Most amount of eggs crushed by a human skull.
I thought the Filipino guy had it, but then he was using quail eggs.
Get to the point, Peter.
We're just facilitating people's weird vanity projects. There's no merit in it. You know the French guy who holds the world record for eating metal?
Yeah.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah, well, I missed my daughter's graduation and my son's birthday so I could watch a heavy-set man from France eat a 4-speed bicycle. And you know how long that record lasted?
I do not.
2 weeks.
Someone came along and ate a tandem.
Well, we think it's fun, and it lets average people get world records.
Average people shouldn't be getting world records. That's why they call them average people. They're average.
We're fulfilling dreams, Peter.
Largest human dominoes attached to mattresses.
Yes.
Most amount of watermelons chopped on a human stomach.
They're world records.
Exactly.
Well, here's a record for you. Most amount of barrel scraping in the one room.
No, there's a guy in Idaho who has that record already.
I'm trying to make a point, Darren.
I have heard enough. Right now, there are 168 chihuahuas in Guadalajara who are preparing to perform the world's biggest ever ABBA dance tribute act, and my 2 certifiers are sitting here more than 8 hours away.
We'll be witnessing history, Peter.
Oh, people aren't even trying to do impressive things anymore.
Yeah?
Why are you looking at me like that?
No, go on, we're listening.
They just find something so specific that of course nobody's ever done it before, and of course it's going to be a world record.
Yes.
I'm fed up of verifying nonsense awards for attention-seeking losers.
He did it!
Oh,
He did it!
congratulations! It's a new world record!
World record?
Yes, the most amount of complaining in an office space in a 24-hour period. Congratulations!
Oh my God!
I knew you could do it.
I got a world record! I'm a world record holder! What an achievement!
What blimmin' nonsense, seriously. People take world records way too seriously, some people. But it's their whole lives are castrated around it to make themselves a celebrity. But that says how some people are, isn't it? But yeah, some of those world records really like, oh my God, eating metal. Like, do you have any idea how much damage that could do to your body? That could have the damage that could do. Like, I don't even want to know, guys. Oh my God. So guys, if you haven't already considered, please consider becoming a YouTube member. You could be one for as little as 99p. 99p doesn't sound like a lot, but it really does make a massive difference. It financially supports the work that I do here, and it really makes a massive difference, guys. Not just for myself, but for the whole gang here. So myself, the gang here, which you get custom emojis for them as well. So you got there Ollie there on the top there, who's sitting on top of the orb. You have Pingu there, who is the fabulous communist Chinese spy penguin, apparently, according to my chat. And you have Cash Dummy, who's hiding behind there, who cannot find his father and has been stuck here ever since. And we don't know if he'll ever find his dad again, but he's here. And then we have the orb and the lava lamp. They're always behind me. They're always watching and glazing. And you get access to custom emojis of all these fabulous guys in when you are a YouTube member. So you get that at either 99p or 2.99 membership. If you are a 99p membership, not only you get access to those emojis, but also whenever you comment on any of my videos, I always respond to your videos, and obviously you get access to membership community posts as well. So thank you to everyone who is one of those members. If you are a Snowflake Corporal, you get early access to content. So content before it's published out, you get early access to content as part of the 2.99 membership, guys. So thank you to everyone who's been a member. It is greatly appreciated. Other ways, if you want to financially support me, is by doing a super chat. Super chats are greatly appreciated. So any of those really does make a big difference. Or by buying me a coffee, link is in the description, or by joining me on Patreon for exclusive content. You get access to exclusive content if you join the Patreon for a small amount. I actually get a bigger cut from Patreon than I do on YouTube. So if you do any of those things, guys, I want to say big thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It does make a difference, guys. It really, really does, believe it or not. So the next one I've got for you guys is a fascinating one here from the Independent here. Chaos as the Tory chairman is put on a shortlist of one to ensure that he gets a seat. So Richard Holden is on the shortlist of one to ensure that he gets a seat after multiple Conservatives constituency rejects Sunak's hand-picked party chairman. So what's this all about? Let's have a read, guys. So there's actually been talk about him getting made a lord apparently as well. I've heard that rumor around. I don't know how true that is as well. A fresh embarrassment has emerged for Rishi Sunak after Conservative Party chiefs were forced to put his hand-picked chairman Richard Holden on the shortlist of one to ensure that he had a seat to fight. Mr Holden is the only name listed for Ballaston and Beckery seat in Essex, which had a majority of 20,412 in 2019. The move has caused fury in the local association, which is understood has already been in a standoff with CCHU because it wanted its own shortlist and is not impressed by the party's bosses. So the party are basically saying, yeah, we're going to put him in there because he's got the best chance of holding on to his seat for Richard Holden. But we've got locals here who have been here the whole time and they're going to be cast aside for this man. That's not fair. It's basically what they're trying to imply here. But now the party has used emergency election rules which allow them to impose a single candidate 48 hours before the deadline. But it's understood that the local association chairman has protested by cancelling the spending general meetings to make the selection. So this is quite a row that's brewing here. Fascinating. One member has said, given the wobbly at best state of the national campaign at the moment, it's a real kick in the teeth to the hundreds of dedicated candidates, not to mention tens of thousands of activists who are struggling valiantly for the party, to see the attention of the party chairman selfishly centre on himself. How does he expect to be able to help other candidates across the country if he's running around trying to impose himself on constituencies after running away from his own? Imposing Mr Holden as the candidate allows Mr Sunak to avoid the humiliation of being unable to find his chairman a seat to fight in the election when he was supposed to be coordinating the national campaign. Mr Holden has already been resisted by members of Bastion and Beckery in Northamptonshire South. He has pulled his name from the selection for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich after members there are understood to have objected. Leading the outrage was Andrew Baggott, leader of the Tory opposition group on Bastion Borough Council. He said, what we've known the seat needed is a candidate since last October. CCHQ have fobbed us off for months, and even last night, Tuesday, we were told that we would have a group of 3 candidates to choose from. This morning, everything has changed. The imposition of a candidate on the good folks of Bastion Beckery is absolutely shameful. From the get-go, it appears the candidates department have been less than honest with the officers of our association, and that their attitude seems borderline arrogant. The executives have a very clear criteria that their preferred candidate and the imposed candidate poses none of them. I've actually heard similar things about some of the selections, obviously for Labour. But it's not. It's this sounds wrong, but it sounds not. It's good to hear this more from the Conservatives because we don't hear a lot about this, or the papers don't highlight enough about this. But it's another issue, another headache that the Conservative Party don't need, is what this is. It's a slap in the face to local councillors, volunteers and the membership. We need a Conservative here, and local members should be trusted to know what that means to be able to select democratically who want to represent them. There's nothing democratic about your Conservative Party, about what they've done for the last 14 years. Just going to throw that in there. I'll be discussing this with my fellow members to work out the next steps. We certainly won't accept this without a fight. Mr Holden has suffered because of perceptions that he was so-called chicken run from the northeast after his northwest Durham constituency disappeared from his boundary review. He had rejected the chance of standing in his neighbouring Bishop Auckland, vacated by fellow Tory MP Diana Davison, who is quitting politics because it was seen as unwinnable. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to stay in the seat that I know I'm not going to win. However, the big objections to Mr Holden appears to be his closeness to Mr Sunak and anger among ordinary activists over the way his government has been conducted under his leadership, as well as forcing out of Boris Johnson and his efforts in the current election campaign. There have been criticisms in the way special advisors from Downing Street have been parachuted into winnable seats. The Conservative Party said Mr Holden's candidacy would only be confirmed on Friday when nominations for people standing officially close. Yeah, and that's going to be fascinating when it's all said and done. Baddiston and Bickery became vacant as a result of the retirement of Brexit Tory MP John Bolton. A Conservative Party spokesperson said, "We do not comment on selections." No, why would you want to tell us the truth about what's going on there? Yeah, so, we've been hearing obviously about some of the Labour candidates and how some of them have been pushed out. Same thing happening with the Conservatives. We just don't hear enough about it. And this is as an example of just how those who are working in the local areas, local constituencies, making those differences, and not a candidate from that area is being selected, and instead they're just going to pull someone like a good friend of Sunak, the chairman himself, going to be making sure that he gets the seat so he can remain in Parliament. So always putting their friends and whatnot forward instead of the constituencies. Once again, that's just how it feels here with this story. And are they going to be able to do anything about it? No, I don't think they will. In the end, if they really want to push this through the CCHQ, they will push this through. In the end, and it's a shame as well, because it's like, and what I mean is, before people laugh saying, "What do you mean it's a shame? It's the Conservative Party. You shouldn't have any sympathy for them." No, what I mean is local Conservatives those local volunteers who got part of that constituency, who worked in that constituency, who know the people and whatnot. Not having somebody who truly represents the constituency, their values and their issues, and just putting someone in there for the sake of keeping them in the Houses of Parliament, as opposed to actually getting someone who actually represents their represents the constituency. That's what I mean by that part. But we'll have to see after Friday, when it's all said and done, when it's all in place, guys, what's the what they're going to be. So this next one, guys, I've got from you is from the London Economic. It's quite an old one, but I wanted to highlight this one because I think it's a fascinating piece, because I have read it before, but I want to read it again. So it asks the question that could the Greens pull off a UKIP for the left? So the Labour Party is adrift in a sea of broken promises before it's even taken office. Will Progressives be forced to find a new home? So there is there has been a changing. In some people have obviously drifted away from Labour Party. There have been the issues obviously with the Gaza situation. Obviously those who have been supporters of Corbyn have been pushed out as well. So that means that some of them have gone to Liberal Democrats, some have gone independents, and some have turned to the Green Party. Now, could the Greens pull off a UKIP to the left? My general answer straight out is no, on one simple reason only, and that is on media reform. The mainstream media will not give the Green Party enough coverage. That is the reality. I know that there has been recent stories about anti-Semitism within the Green Party, but there was also anti-Semitism within Labour as well in the past. We know there's anti-Semitism and whatnot within the Conservative Party as well. I don't hear much about infighting within the Labour Liberal Democrats, so if anyone knows any infighting or any news stories of any kind of infighting in Liberal Democrats, send me some links on Discord and I'll have a look. But on the Greens here itself, are they they are the party at the moment? The party for me that are the ones I'm most likely to vote for a couple of reasons. So one, I like their policies. And two, I'm in a constituency where it's a very strong Labour stronghold, so my vote is not going to make a shred of difference. And I like some of the things that they are saying. Are they perfect? Of course not. They have their flaws, just like many other parties. But I feel my vote for Labour is a wasted vote, in my opinion. When I want to give the Greens an opportunity to have their voice, and I generally do hope they get 4 seats at this general election, because it would just mean more voices in Parliament, which means more voices, more difference, more political parties, which means more ideas and whatnot can be bounced within the Houses of Parliament, as opposed to just the same parties all the time. So I do want to see more Greens in there, but whether they will or not is not. But I don't know whether or not I don't think they can pull off this UKIP for the left, because they're not going to get the same coverage as other parties. With a general election set for the 4th of July, Labour is on course to form the next government. If early indications of Labour resurgence in Scotland are represented, they will likely win a healthy majority. And yet it is clear that any Labour government led by Keir Starmer will be, at best, a placeholder until the Tories piece themselves back together. The Labour Party is adrift in a sea of broken promises before it has even taken office, with little left to offer but vague plateaus about growth and physical rules, with the old crumbs of technocratic tinkering while pandering to the right-wing press. They are definitely, this is why this is why I don't cover the London economics too much, just because of the wording here about the Labour Party. I don't agree with these wordings to in a sense, but I also understand why people feel they feel about the Labour Party as well. Since the ignominious departure of Boris Johnson from Downing Street, Starmer has arguably taken up the mantle of the most dishonest individual in frontline British politics. That is just nonsense. That's just BS. I'm sorry, that's just BS. In terms of other British politicians like Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, that's just nonsense. I'm sorry. Among his many betrayals are abandoning the renationalisation of energy. Now, let's be very clear here. They've not U-turned on the policy. They've U-turned on the amount of money that they pledged into it. So it was initially going to be 28 billion. They have U-turned on the amount of money, but they haven't U-turned on the policy itself. That's a lie there. Royal Mail and Walter scrapping his promise to scrap tuition fees, dumping his commitment to raising taxes on the rich. They may still tax the rich in different ways, because there are different ways they could do it. So, but yeah, not outright saying they're going to tax the rich. Yeah, it does bother me. Ditching plans for the £28 billion a year climate-related investment. I just said weasel out the promise to approve no new domestic oil and gas licenses. Yeah, not promising that is obviously uncomfortable. It's not helpful either. Labour's response to Israel's military assault upon Gaza, which according to international criminal courts plausible amounts to genocide, has been sickening in its more complicity. Yeah, the situation around its response in Gaza has not been good either. Likewise, Starmer's welcoming far-right Tory defectors jumping ship to save careers, even while Diane Abbott has remained suspended for over a year, has also betrayed a total lack of core beliefs or sense of justice in all of his part, or rather ironic for a former head of CPS, that's Crown Prosecutor Service. Given these and other failings, many on the left will be looking with interest towards the Green Party. To reiterate, Labour is going to win the election. The Tories would be virtually have to violate the second law of thermodynamics to get back into government. So we're free to vote with our consensus. Nevertheless, in these marginal seats where the Tories are still competing, you may wish to think more cautiously. And of course, there are decent Labour candidates that have little need to look elsewhere. But naturally, the Green Party that this person is saying, and I'm focused here on the Green Party of England and Wales, currently looks at the most attractive options for many yearning for progressive change and wishing to hold the next level of government to account. So far, Green commitments including a plan for a £250 billion of investment in grants and low interest loans for home installation. This is a good thing. Obviously, the Green Party is obviously their pledges are obviously to deal with green. And the thing is, I said in the debate, obviously, when he brought up home installation, I said, this installation is something that desperately needs in people's homes, and we need to sort that out because that will significantly reduce energy bills. That was more generous than Labour's similar scheme, as well as a commitment to universal free school meals for primary and secondary students. This should be a given. I don't know why anybody would have any issue with this. Starmer has ruled this out even just for primary schools. Another aim is improving bus service, introducing a £1 single fare on all routes and free travel for those under 22. I love this idea. How are you going to cost fund this? How would you fund something like this is the biggest problem. This sounds fantastic, but I just... a £1 single fare, I would love that to happen, but I'm just saying that's as great as an idea that is. How would you cost affect that? Funded by carbon taxes from cancelling national road building plans. I don't think that's going to be enough, personally. Unlike Labour, Greens support recent waves of industrial action, joining picket lines and committing to inflation matching public sector pay rises. Yep, 100% agree with that. They consistently called out Israel's war crime in Gaza and supported calls for a ceasefire and ending of UK arms sales to Israel. Yes, they have said this right from the start. I'm not going to deny that. The Green Party is thus seeking to attract voters frustrated by Labour's lack of vision and are targeting at least 4 seats for the next election, including Brighton Pavilion, which are hoping to hold with Shim after the current Green MP Caroline Lucas stepped down. By appealing to large and growing swathes of progressive voters disillusioned with Labour, the Greens could make for an effective thorn in the side of Keir Starmer, and especially if they win seats in Parliament, pressing to implement progressive policies or risk further losing support. The obvious blueprint for such strategy comes on the other end of the political spectrum under the nurturing yellow and purple rosette of Ukip. Under the leadership of Nigel Farage, Ukip was, whatever else we might say, an incredible successful political force, virtually unheard of until the mid-2000s. For the next decade, it nipped away at the Tory base on immigration and Europe until, during the coalition government, it had them over a barrel. It was arguably down to Ukip that in 2015 that became such an immigration election. And they forced the promise of an EU referendum from David Cameron. As such, they've helped achieve more dramatic change to this country and more politicians dare to dream of. Even without winning seats in the general election, UKIP's two short-lived MPs were former Tories who won by-elections. Yeah, that says a lot, doesn't it? Given that the Greens have grown over the decades from the ground up, are already well represented with many local councils, have held Brighton Pavilion for 14 years, and have real prospects of winning multiple new seats at the upcoming election. They are in a strong position to exert similar pressure on Labour. If Green Party's co-leader Carla Denver unseats Labour's Fabian Debonair in Bristol Central, for example, it would serve as a consistent reminder that the left won't be taken for granted. Of course, one asset that the Greens currently lack, in contrast to UKIP, is a Farage, a sensationalist, pint-swinging leadership figure who walks headfirst into controversy and can play the media like a fiddle. Nonetheless, with a structural advantage just mentioned, as well as popular Green programme and the potential to catch the swathes of young first-time voters, the Greens may succeed without this element. I will agree. I do think that they do need a figurehead that they do need some kind of figurehead. Now, I actually heard this idea of some people saying, why not Corbyn join the Green Party? And I was just like, but his ideas and his policies don't really align with the Greens. And I don't see him as a Farage figure because he's too divisive, Corbyn. So that would not work. So who would be that person that could be like the left wing's Farage? George Galloway's obviously too. It's not left wing. He's right wing really with his comments and ethics and whatnot. The only good thing he's a support of Gaza, but I think the Greens do need some kind of figure like that to help boost them over the line. But the question is, who can be that person? Unlike UKIP's strategy of turning one of hitherto narrows and obscuring issue into central one, Greens are ultimately making a more substantial offer to the public than are Labour. Unless Labour surprises everyone with rational and visionary manifesto, then much of the wider progressive coalition is built under Jeremy Corbyn. We'll see the Greens as a more appealing option in July, and with the current oblivion facing the Tories, they won't have to worry about lesser evils voting. If the Greens can harness this support and take it to Parliament and beyond, the next Labour government might be forced to eventually make some positive changes. It's an interesting piece. I'm not 100% in some of the things they're saying about Labour. I don't really agree on some of those aspects, but I do think that the Greens can make a splash. But again, like, you're not mentioning, like, obviously, like I said, this was 28th of May. This article came out, so it is quite a while back. This one, but I guess that is the question of can they be the like reform be for the right of the Conservatives? Can the Greens be the left for Labour? Can they be that needle, that thorn in Labour's side that could be a problem? I do believe they can. But I do agree in the analysis piece that they do need a figurehead. Like I said, I do like a lot of Greens policies, but I also think that Labour do have some ideas, and I think that if the Greens can help push Labour to a position where people want them to be, and it better benefits us all in the country, then I'm all for that. But it is a lot of talk, and it really is down to them, to the pressure. But I really think those door knocking, those events that the Greens host, it really, really matters. And the thing is, them not getting mainstream media time is a big problem for me. They're not getting enough of it. We know they're not getting enough of it, but they need to be given that to be able to showcase what they can do. But That's one of the things I think is the problem, because you have the Lib Dems, obviously, Ed Davies making a lot of splashes with some of his antics. Conservatives and Labour, obviously, because they're the main parties. And Reform has Nigel Farage now, and Nigel Farage will be the machine that gives them the attention that they need. He will tweet constantly, and the mainstream media will follow them around. They won't do the same with the Green Party. So they need to find ways to get more attention on them. And that'll be problematic for sure. So last piece I've got for you guys before we wrap things up here on Regan's Newsround is from Barline Times here. Just a bit of a fallout piece from the leadership debate. If you guys want to hear more, I'll cover, save my some pieces here, but obviously I covered it in full. So if you want to watch the debate again in full, you can watch. So I have a live stream that I've watched it, covered it. I went about 2.5 hours though, because I was cutting off of a lot, sharing my thoughts on it. But if you want to check that out, you're more than welcome to do so. But this last one here is from Byline Times. It's the leaders' debate. Rishi Sunak desperately tries to save a failing campaign with votes. Votes leave style tax lie. So the Conservative supporting newspaper today led on an already reported debunked lie about Labour's tax plans. Yeah, so believe it or not, yeah, there were the fact that a Conservative supporting newspaper debunked the lie that Rishi Sunak made. That's not good. That's not good. This debate was it was very good. It was like it was good in terms of entertainment. I would say it was a bit of entertainment, a bit of argy-bargy sort of thing. But I asked the poll, do you think it'll make much of a difference? Most people didn't think it's going to make much of a difference. I thought Sunak was just slightly a little bit better, but some people vehemently disagree and thought Keir Starmer won by a landslide. But you can say it's even Stevens, the debate, but some people may disagree. But it was a much needed debate, I think. I just think that the host was crap, the format was poor, and the people who asked the questions were never given a chance to ask what they thought of the answers from both of them there, which I thought was poor. But let's read what Barline had to say on this. So, with multiple polls suggesting the Conservative Party is heading for its worst ever general election defeat, Rishi Sunak needed a big win in last night's big TV debate with Keir Starmer. In the end, he didn't get it. Two snap polls conducted among viewers of the debate had it effectively neck and neck, with pollsters YouGov showing Sunak narrowly ahead on the question of who performed best, and Savannah instead putting Starmer out in front. Meanwhile, both pollsters showed Starmer leading on all the big personal traits and policy issues. However, Sunak may not have got the big game changer he needed. It hasn't stopped Conservatives supporting newspapers from attempting to help him manufacture one. Front pages of the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, Times and Express this morning all lead on Sunak's entirely false claim during the debate that Keir Starmer plans to raise people's taxes by £2,000 if he becomes Prime Minister. Yeah, all these are all misleading. And the problem is, and this is why we need media reform. Because we know this is a lie. But the problem is that people will look at that, they will see that, and they will say, yep, this is definitely happening. That they're definitely putting it up. When we know for a fact that it's not. But the problem is the damage is already done, the information is already out there, which is really frustrating, which is why we need media reform. We need media reform badly, and what we need is that when they make accusations like this, they are forced front page apology to say that they are lying to the British public about something. This claim was made 12 times by the Prime Minister during the debate. It's entirely false, as multiple independent fact-checkers have already confirmed. This supposed independent assessment of Labour plans is actually based on a dossier produced by Rishi Sunak's own aides, premiered on a series of Labour policies, many of which have not even been adopted by the Labour Party, and while the Conservatives continued to claim that it was produced by civil servants, the Treasury's own Permanent Secretary warned ministers in advance of the debate that the figures should not be presented as having been produced by the civil servants. It is, in other words, a lie, and a big one. Yet it seems to have an effect. A YouGov snap polling found that while viewers believe Starmer had the better of the Prime Minister among all policy areas, Sunak was seen by a clear margin to have beaten him on the issue of tax. And just like in 2016, when Vote Leave campaign lead on the lie that evening the EU would hand £350 million a week to the NHS, Sunak's £2,000 tax lie is getting a wider audience precisely, though it has been repeatedly countered by its opponents. The fact that some journalists and broadcasters, including the immediate aftermath of the debate, have been debunking the lie is actively helping it get an airing. And that's the thing. It's getting people, it's still, like I said, Guys, it's in the mindsets of people. Whether it's factual or not, it's in the mindset of people. The damage is done already. Now, Sunak, who promised to lead a government based on integrity and accountability, is pursuing a dishonest strategy and is unsurprising. In his closing statement, the Prime Minister made a series of other false claims about his own record, saying that voters should choose lower immigration and lower taxes, despite the fact that he has raised both taxes and immigration by record amounts. His claim during the debate had reduced small boat crossings by a third in the past 12 months. That was another lie that was left uncorrected on air. In reality, crossings reached a record high in the first 5 months of the year. Meanwhile, his separate claim had brought NHS waiting lists down, while actively having raised them led to outright laughter from the studio audience, most of whom would have no doubt have direct experience of lengthy waits for any kind of treatment themselves. Starmer wasn't entirely honest during the debate, either, claiming that Starmer had promised to scrap inheritance tax at the cost of £10 billion. In reality, the Prime Minister has yet to make any such pledges, despite multiple reporting suggesting that it is set to be announced later in the campaign. Yet with polls suggesting there's absolutely none of the policies Sunak has announced so far in making any meaningful difference, the Conservative campaign has clearly decided to simply try to lie their way to a different outcome. And with much of the media this morning appealing willing to help them spread Sunak's latest false claim, it remains to see whether the strategy will succeed where previous ones have failed. I don't know if it's going. I don't think it's going to make a difference, but this is it is desperation from Sunak. It is absolute desperation from him to cling on to power. But we also know that he's going to bugger off to America if he doesn't win. We know he's going to step away. He's going to be done and dusted. He won't want anything more to do with any of this. We know that. We know he's tired of politics here. I feel like he's done just as much damage as Liz Truss and Boris Johnson. I really do. And the politicians and politics are wise. The integrity that we have had is long gone, long gone. And I generally hope that Keir Starmer does bring some of that back. I really, really hope he does as Prime Minister. I like many other people, are very sceptical of him and the Labour Party, and rightly so. But I really do want some honesty and some integrity and some action about the issues taking place in this country, because you just cannot trust the Conservatives to do so. You really can't. And all these people who are saying you can't trust Labour and whatnot, people like, I don't trust Labour, but we've not had Labour for more than 14 years. 14 years is a long time. It's a big chunk of people's lives, 14 years. So for some people's lifetimes, all they've had is Conservative. They've never had another political party for some people. So, and they want to introduce, and one of the good policies, whether you agree or disagree, is the 16, 17-year-olds getting a chance to cast their vote. I think that's really good from Labour. But this tax lie, it's not going to go away. Even if we debunked it, it's still going to be in the minds of people on those front pages from the right wingers. People will run with that, and it's a real shame. It is a real shame, isn't it, guys? Yeah, so the gang agree with me. It's pretty disappointing, to say the least. But did you guys enjoy the show? Pingo was quite interesting, found it informative. Ollie liked the show. I don't know why he's not happy about it, but he thought it was okay. Cash, doesn't feel like talking today. But the gang and everyone is there. And we have reached the end of the show, of the end of Regan's Newsround. So, guys, what did you think of what we discussed today? So we covered quite a variety of topics. We talked about the Tories looking to do some kind of US-style classification on crime. We talked about reforms latest in polling from YouGov, talking about Labour as legal action against Corbyn-era staff. Tory Cabinet's talking about doing some kind of referendum on the ECHR, possibly. Chaos in the Conservative, as the Conservative chairman is trying to hijack a seat for his own. The Greens potentially becoming the Ukip of the left, possibly here. And then finally, the fallout of the leadership debate. What do you guys make of some of these stories that we covered and more? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But just before you go, guys, I just have one more thing to say before you head out. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Be greatly appreciated. Share across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.